Now, this is what we have to look at. Gender advocates have intensified the process of getting the Affirmative Action Bill passed into law. At a dialogue session in Accra, participants discussed factors that may have caused delays in the passage and how they can be addressed. Hannah Odami joined the discussion and reports.
In her submission, international consultant Joanna Opari said Ghana is in clear violation of the UN benchmark, which states women representation in governance should be minimum of 40%. Currently, Ghana's effort is only 10.5%. She argued the passage of the bill is necessary, so it serves as a working document for all governments.
In Ghana, we have been told, and I want to repeat it, public life participation and representation has remained low since independence. We have ranged from 9.6% at independence in 1957 to 10.9% in 2012, peaking at 18.2% in 1965. This is against the UN benchmark of 30%. But we have been doing something over the years. What we want to do now is to put more fuel into the fire and make sure that we have the necessary legal backing so that nobody questions us. We have had some policy guidelines for a long time, and political leaders come and decide to interpret it anyhow. So one party is in power and they are like, oh, let's get 20 women there. Another one comes and says it should be 50. The other comes and says something else. Resources to carry that out is a question. So we are saying, let us have the legal backing. Let us have a document that gives us the scope and the impetus to demand from everybody, policymakers, that this is what you have said. You have appended your signature. Just like we refer people to the 1992 Constitution. This is in the Constitution. So we have something now to back us up, to say that this is our demand. You signed onto it. We are saying 40%. We have to be there. Sometimes people argue, where are they now, where are they? They are there.
Governance expert Ransford Jampo was unhappy that Ghana is always first to sign any convention but never gets them implemented, and hoped that will not be the case for the Affirmative Action Bill when passed.
In the lead up to the 2008 and 2012 elections, we know that some political parties attempted implementing some affirmative action move by having nomination fee for their women parliamentary aspirants. But I also know that some men were not too happy with this. Recently, we also read the initiative undertaken by the MPP to maintain their women parliamentarians in parliament. And this move, in my view, was hurriedly conceived, and so it was also hurriedly jettisoned, because it lacked support even among women. Any move aimed at empowering women must be critically thought through, and its implementation must court support from women themselves. So this was hurriedly conceived and it was hurriedly abandoned. Something must be done. In Ghana, we are always among the first to ratify agreements, and yet we tend to relax after those agreements have been ratified. Now, sometimes, too, we do not even respect our own legislations. Article 35 plus 5 of the Directive Principles of State Policy enjoins the state to prohibit discrimination on grounds of gender. Then my question is, how far have we upheld this, and why was this important provision placed under a section of the Constitution generally regarded as not too justiciable. Governmental commitment over the years to women's participation have not been translated into strategy, policy, action, and legislation. And so it is obvious that until special measures are initiated, the battle against the marginalization of women will be fought and lost. Appointing most of them, or appointing a number of them into decision-making and into governance as ministers, as deputy ministers, asking them to serve on boards, etc., is good. But it cannot be sustained because there is no guarantee to show that successive regimes would continue that route. And so that is why affirmative action legislation is critical, in my view. But we should also bear in mind that we can say everything about the goodness and everything good about affirmative action legislation. But it's important we bear in mind the fact that legislation alone wouldn't be enough. Because in Ghana, we know of several legislations that are there but do not get implemented. So passing the law alone is not enough. When passed, it must be enforced. And if possible, I don't know, let's take advantage of the ongoing constitution review process and see whether we can even possibly entrench it in a constitution. So it doesn't become like any other legislation. Women issues are not any other issues.
Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oyelitha, emphasized despite the numerous female appointments by President Mahama, discrimination against women still abounds.
The Constitutional Review Commission highlighted this issue of underrepresentation of women and said although we constitute 50%, is actually 51% of our total population, we are only 8% in political and public offices. This concern raised by the Constitutional Review Commission, among others, said that women are in the majority, but in Ghana, the minority decide for the majority. So the Commission recommended that Parliament should enact an affirmative action law that addresses the broader issues of gender inequality in Ghana within 6 months of the coming into force of the constitutional amendments. We all know presently there's a case in the Supreme Court, but thankfully, even before the Constitutional Review Commission, we had started this process under the National Council on Women and Development and the then Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, I would here like to commend very highly our own President, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, for appointing the highest number of women ever any Ghanaian president has appointed into government. We are gratified. Thank you. We are gratified that the President has reposed his confidence in women and has identified us women in Ghana as equal partners in developing and governing Ghana. You, the people of Ghana, are the best judges to ascertain whether we in governance have not worked hard, whether we have not shown commitment to serve our nation, and whether or not we should not get an affirmative action law that ensures that more women are appointed into governance. Dare I say, this is the highest appointment to public office. We have the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Rural Integration, Minister of Education, Minister of Tourism, Minister of Justice, Minister of Fisheries, Minister of Transport. Within the public service, we have the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. We have a female Director General of the Prison Service, a female Executive Director of Investment Promotion Center. Controller and Accountant General is a female. The Chair of the National Council of State is female. The Chair of the Public Services Commission is female. This achievement notwithstanding,
the continuous existence of gender inequality stares us in the face every day. We go to the markets, we walk on the streets. And the only way we can sustain and increase the numbers is by affirmative action. The icing of the cake was recently when the president appointed Mrs. Charlotte Osei as the chair of the Electoral Commission. But how do we entrench this practice, this positive practice, and ensure that it is not rolled back by subsequent presidents? We entrench this and sustain this by ensuring that it is in a law such as what we have called the Gender Equality and Affirmative Action Act. This is how we will ensure that this practice, this best practice that the president has started and sustained, will be used and implemented and enforced by future presidents, hopefully including a female future president. This is why this ministry is collaborating with the UN system, UNDP, and Action Aid to develop an affirmative action bill. There has been extensive national consultations over the past 3 or 4 years. We have a national stakeholder group of experts, 21 members. A lot of them are here. Auntie Joanna, Auntie Hillary are members of this. They actually drafted the first drafting instructions for the bill. Please clap for them with Shilaminka Premo and Estella Pia. We submitted this to the Attorney General in 2013, and we had our first draft bill early 2014. We reviewed it after extensive consultations again, and we now have a second draft of the affirmative action bill. Auntie Charity, please wave the copy that you have. That's the bill, so we do have a bill, and we have submitted further comments to the Attorney General, and we're waiting for a final draft bill. We will do a national stakeholder consultation, validate that final draft bill, and then hopefully by December, we will submit to Cabinet for approval. So we are on course in that regard. And
the affirmative action bill is expected to be submitted to Cabinet in December. Hannah Odame for Joy News.